Hi, everybody. Thank you, Tracy, for inviting me here, and thank you, Maisha, for making this space available to all of us. My name is Dr. Dan Burnett, and I'm happy here to talk to you about what I consider to be the future of data and life science, particularly clinical medicine. My background is I'm a biomedical engineer by training at University of Pennsylvania. I spent a year at the FDA, and then I went on to do my MD, MBA at Duke University. I did my internship at the Mayo Clinic and matched for a residency at Stanford, but never went. I ended up starting my first company through Theranova LLC, which is a medical device incubator, and joined a venture firm that invested in that company. I stayed there for a couple of years and realized I like building companies far more than investing in them, and left to do Theranova full-time. And I came into contact with Tracy with one of my, I think it was the 7th venture to spin out of our medical device incubator, called Potrero Medical. Potrero Medical is a device that incorporates embedded sensors on a urinary catheter, something many patients already need in the ICU. And we just embedded it with sensors so that we could extract data from this core space in the body. We extracted urine output, which is obvious for a urinary catheter, temperature and intra-abdominal pressure. And in the last 7 years, we've been working on this technology with clinical studies and have now shown through a convolutional neural network that we are able to detect a big problem in cardiac surgery, acute kidney injury, which complicates about 20 to 30% of cardiac surgeries and is one of the big problems for cardiac surgeons. The surgery can go perfectly, but then the patient ends up with acute kidney injury, which can evolve into chronic renal failure and the need for dialysis. Our company, through extracting these 3 data streams off of our device, has been able to detect acute kidney injury 41 hours in advance, with better positive predictive value, better specificity than the standard of care now, and similar sensitivity. So this is an example of a convolutional neural network being used to develop an algorithm that has impacted care. And that was largely the reason, I think, why Tracy invited me to speak on this topic. So where are we now? Hold on, how does this work? There we go. So artificial intelligence in the news. Everybody knows about, there's lots of news around artificial intelligence right now. We're from San Francisco, and you can see this car driving around the Castro district with no driver. It's pretty freaky. You can actually hail these in San Francisco now, and they're driving around. Occasionally, they'll snarl traffic, but otherwise, they're pretty good. One thing a lot of people don't know is there's a lot of artificial intelligence also flying which is a little bit scarier, flying your airplane. If you talk to the airlines, they'll tell you, a recent survey of the airlines found that the autopilot is engaged 98% of the time on a flight. So there's only 2% of the time when the pilot's actually flying the plane. It's probably not far off based on the number of flights that are being taken and how the ground truth data is being curated by the airlines and the autopilot, that there may be no pilot in the plane at all. It'd be flown like a drone. There's also chatbot GPT, if anybody's heard about that. It passed the exams for law and business school earlier this year, and shockingly, it passed the radiology board exam. There are many physicians that are saying there's no point in training radiologists anymore, period. Films are digital, and AI is much better at reading films than humans are. And that's been proven out in studies and publications. This publication is 7 years old. It talks about how AI is better than the average doctor at detecting pneumonia. It's also better at detecting ophthalmologic diseases, optic disc abnormalities, and better at detecting bladder cancer on slides, histology slides, better at detecting prostate cancer and biopsies on slides as well. And another study building on the ChexNet data shows that it's better at detecting 4 illnesses, categorizing X-rays into 4 different categories: normal, tuberculosis, pneumonia, or COVID-19. So these are studies that have shown the power of artificial intelligence in medicine. Recognizing this, the world's foremost medical journal, New England Journal of Medicine, is creating a New England Journal of Medicine artificial intelligence subjournal of their journal itself. to try to keep up with all the publications coming out on the various ways that AI can be used in medicine. So these studies, though, are just scratching the surface of what can be done. As with all the other talks earlier today, AI has much more profound impact potential on medicine, including routine medical care. When you're in medical school, there's a common phrase which your attendings and mentors will tell you, which is if you hear hoofbeats, it's probably a horse and not a zebra. So don't keep looking for zebras, because medical students always are like, what if this is metastatic syphilis? Probably isn't. It's probably just the patient is confused and demented because they're on polypharmacy, which is more of a horse. AI can actually, as the physician gets farther in his or her career, they hear the horses all the time, but they tend to start to miss the zebras. Because as you're 10, 15 years out, you've seen 1,000 pneumonias, but you haven't seen a syphilitic lesion in a lung. So they'll forget about the zebras. AI has the ability to look for the horses first and foremost, because they're the most common, but not forget about the zebras, based on the huge data sets they'll have that can be curated by ground truth, which will initially be the key opinion leaders and physicians powering these. You can also do sub-analyses of distinct populations to allow for much more personalized care. This will allow physicians to, or the algorithms, not the physicians, the algorithms to look at profession, race, gender, all sorts of other factors in the care and be able to determine the higher likelihood of certain illnesses based on those. There's also robotic surgery based on the best practices and curated by millions of surgeries. If you were to go and get surgery now, you'd probably want a physician that's done it hundreds of times, maybe thousands, if you're going to get a heart transplant or a CABG done, a coronary artery bypass graft. These robotic surgery instruments, Intuitive, Auris, a bunch of others out there now, they are gathering data on the surgeons doing these surgeries, and they're gathering best practices and worst practices. They know how surgeries go right, and they know how surgeries go wrong. So eventually, down the road, you could have the best surgeon possible that is curated by all of the surgeries that have been done by these robots, but that's a bit down the road, as I'll explain now, because with all the potential of medicine, there are currently no AI and artificial intelligence algorithms in medicine that are being deployed widely. So why is that? As Anthony said earlier, regulation is going to be a big part of the pushback on AI. And the medical device industry is heavily regulated, the medical industry in general. There's also access to data. There's an electronic medical record. Getting behind the firewall to get access to the electronic medical record is a 9 to 15 month process for every single hospital. So if you're going to start to aggregate data from the electronic medical records behind the firewalls of hospitals, it's just a Herculean task. And then there's HIPAA, which is Patient Privacy Act. A patient needs to consent for their data to be used for any sort of a study or development of an algorithm. Also incredibly burdensome. Some hospitals chains like Kaiser are working on consents that for all of their patients. I'm a Kaiser patient. I just got this consent saying, can we use your data to improve medicine? I said yes. So now they can use my data. And they're trying to do that for larger swaths of their patient population, but it's still a big hurdle. Then there's regulatory, which is, I believe, the biggest hurdle of all. When I worked at the FDA, they told us the story of Frances Oldham Kelsey. That's how they initiate all of the new employees at the FDA. And Frances Oldham Kelsey is the woman that single-handedly kept thalidomide off of the US market. And thalidomide in the rest of the world ended up killing 80,000 babies and causing another 20,000 to be born with deformed limbs. And this is hailed as one of the FDA's biggest successes. And they indoctrinate all of their new employees with this in a conservative, to make sure that they're looking at things in a very conservative way and that their job is to protect the US population, not to advance the most cutting-edge care. There's also societies and associations that protect the physicians. The American Medical Association is probably one of the bigger unions out there, and they do not want radiologists to be replaced. So what they end up doing is they end up lobbying to not have these algorithms up there replacing them. And then there's the uncertainty of active learning algorithms. The FDA is okay with a very fixed algorithm that they can point to the data set that it was built on, or the convolutional neural network, and they can figure out how it works. They are not okay with an algorithm that actively learns and evolves over time. There's 521 FDA-cleared AI machine learning algorithms out there. Every single one of them is fixed. It's not allowed to evolve, and if it evolves, you have to describe to the FDA how it evolved, otherwise it's going to be taken off the market. So the future of AI in medicine is going to be a narrow scope, fixed algorithm machine learning applications. It's not going to be an algorithm that is something like chatbot GPT that is constantly pulling from different sources and evolving over time as the internet evolves. It's going to still be something that's very fixed that the FDA can get their arms around. AI will be used to augment care in a physician, not replace it. And there'll be more data and better data. The data right now, even if you got access to the EMR, is relative trash. Some sites get urine output every hour, some every 4 hours, some don't have respiratory rate, some have temperature, but it's only a swipe temperature, some's continuous temperature. But over time, as hospitals and clinics get better at homogenizing these data, then the AI will be able to, the true power of the AI will be able to be tapped into, especially if we can work out the EMR access for de-identified data. That's another thrust going on right now. And then the last is access to proprietary clinically actionable data. That's back to the Potrero Medical story I mentioned earlier. The data coming off of that machine cannot be gathered in any other way other than use of that device. And the data from that machine, if it's shown that it can improve care, is something that will drive the sale of that machine. So investing in AI, again, I think the big thrust is going to be for the proprietary clinically actionable data streams to power the algorithms. There's also going to be AI in non-regulated aspects of medicine where it's already being used and is going to continue to be used even more. Billing, coding, admin, and support. It'll also be used as an adjunct to make clinicians more efficient and also make hospitals and ambulatory surgery centers more efficient and improve on their profitability. And then lastly, there'll be algorithms with very narrow focus, learning applied to individual tasks like the ChexNet, which was 8 years ago, where it was shown, as I mentioned earlier, that it can detect pneumonia better than the average radiologist. That, in my mind, is going to be the first real application of AI and machine learning. It's more appropriately called machine learning because it's all fixed and it's an individual task. But the application of machine learning to radiology, histology, and ophthalmology, 3 image-based professions, is where I think you're going to start to see some early major strides in medicine with machine learning algorithms. So while there is huge potential, we are still quite far off, I believe, from you going to your doctor and seeing this. I think it's probably another 50 years or so.